Greetings, boils and ghouls, goblins and ghosts. You're tuning into Too Ghoul for School, the podcast, a death-style podcast for the morbidly inclined. Class is in session. I'm your ghoulish hostess, Jocelyn Wen, aka Glamour Ghoul Beauty School. I'm an actress, I have my BA in psychology, and I'm a purveyor of all things dark and spooky. Greetings, boils and ghouls, goblins and ghosts. We have a very cool guest on this week for Too Ghoul for School, the podcast. He is a paranormal investigator, has been for many, many years. He goes into great detail about some of the really insane and cool and terrifying and amusing experiences he's had on the job, and he leaves us with a few tips on what to do if you find yourself experiencing weird vibes or energies or a full-on like presence in your own home or like a hotel room. I know I'm a skeptic myself, but I know that there have been times where I was just like, I need to get out of this hotel room. I just feel like something's not right. So I am very excited to welcome Jason Fife of the Lost Souls Paranormal Detectives onto the show. All right. Hey, Jason, thank you so much for coming on Too Ghoul for School, the podcast. We're super excited to have you. Oh my goodness.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yes. I was super excited when I saw a paranormal detective reached out and was like, hey. And I'm like, I didn't think that I would get to that point of like having people reaching out for a while, and I so appreciate it.
Oh, no
Yeah.
problem. Thank you. I mean, it's a great opportunity, and I appreciate it.
Yes. I wanted to ask, so you're with the Lost Souls Paranormal Detectives,
Yes,
with Craig Hoffner, if I'm
yes,
pronouncing that correctly.
yes.
Um, and you guys have been doing this for like 15, 16 years.
We
I
have.
wanted to
Yep.
see like how did you get into the field of paranormal investigation? What your journey into that was like?
Okay. It basically started 2007, and it wasn't your typical like. I guess it's more common now, I guess, where people get together and they're like, "Hey, let's go, do this or that, or let's go to this haunted place, or I've heard of this haunted cemetery, let's go." And where we live, it wasn't really talked about a lot. Um,
And
so
living up in Knoxville.
yes, yeah, we're right smack dab in the middle of the Bible Belt, so it's very, there's a church on every corner type scenario. So it was very, kind of weird at first. Um, but we were just standing in his driveway talking, and I was
Craig's,
getting
right?
and yeah, Greg's driveway, and I was getting ready to go home. We were just, just shooting the bull, and we had brought it up a few times before, but never really decided anything. And he just looked at me. He was like, "So we're gonna do this or what?" And I was like, "Yeah, might as well. I don't know if anybody else around here that's doing it, so we'll go ahead and give it a shot."
Love
And
that. Fuck around and find out, pretty much.
yeah, yeah, pretty much because it was, and
Use my
it's
language.
kind of cool because it's just been me and Craig, or Craig and I, depending, uh, doing this together for the last 16 years. So we haven't had any like really team members or anybody like that because we've just always done it. And
Amazing.
it's like a 50-50. It's like a part, kind of like a partnership. And it's been a really crazy ride, I have to say the least.
Dang, awesome. So yeah, you guys in it together, and I was wondering like you how do you find that dynamic? Because I saw that, Craig is the skeptic. What is that
Yeah.
dynamic like working with a skeptic or more of a
It
skeptic?
it's really cool, like 70% of the time. And and
Great.
the other 30%, it's crazy. I mean, it's like we butt heads and we'll have discussions and get mad at each other, and this is all like within a 15-minute time frame or 20-minute time frame or whatever. So we're all, it's one of those deals, and then the next minute we're like, okay, we'll try it your way, I'll try it my way, and we'll see what happens. and it just works out. You know, what I mean, we we can't stay mad at each other because we've known each other for so long that doing this is just kind of like second nature. You know, it's like we're basically family.
Gotcha. Yeah, you know how each other operates, you know
Right.
when to pick your battles and when
Yes.
it's like worth indulging them. I was gonna ask, how did you two meet? What was your relationship like before starting Lost
He
Souls?
my it's kind of a not a weird story, but it's kind of crazy. My ex-wife is her brother. So, and
Okay.
he was stationed in Hawaii when we got married,
So like your
and then
brother-in-law essentially.
right, and then
Gotcha.
when he retired and came back home, then it was just we started hanging out and doing stuff together and stuff like that, and it just formed into a really really good friendship. And then the paranormal came a little bit later.
Love that. Love that. And so did random discussions come up about like your take on, paranormal entities and events, and then his would come in, and then somehow you convinced him, or you guys like decided.
It's a really it's a learning process on both sides, and I don't think we'll ever fully learn everything. Um,
It's a
but
journey
the
for sure.
yeah, but the ones that we have had in the past are very very, you know, it's like Greg, there's something, you know, standing behind me or standing beside me or just touched my shoulder or whatever, and you know he'll be like, okay, well, let me go check the recordings because I want to make sure. You know, it's not that instant like you see on TV, and I hate to say that, but it's just true. It's that,
Actually,
you know, that
that's a
real big reaction, and he'll go up and check the video, and you know, walk you back down or wherever I'm at, and he'll be like, "Hey, saw a little something to your, you know, your right or your left. You know, just keep doing what you're doing. I'm gonna sit up here and watch it, and we'll do it 30, 40, an hour, whatever it takes, and then finally it's like, okay, I know something was there. I know we had to get something on the video, but we may have got something on the audio. So there again, we bring our 50-50 kind of back, and you know what he can't see, he can hear. So it's very it's interesting how that works.
Yes, yes. I was actually going to ask, what do you feel the media gets right about depictions of paranormal events and incidences, what have you, and what does it get wrong? So, I guess we can start with what it gets right, or if it does.
It's it's kind of like a it's like a blurry line, and that's the only way I
Mm,
can describe it because
gotcha.
you have people on one side, you have people on the other side, and then you have like some people in the middle. Like it's crazy because when and I go back to this a lot because right right when we started, probably about 6 months, 6 months, I guess after we started doing this, Paranormal State came out on A&E. So
Okay.
that was the first like actual paranormal show that depicted paranormal investigations,
Okay.
and
And it's a reality show more
it's kind
so?
of yeah, like a reality based
Gotcha.
show. And I looked at Craig and I was like, Craig, we've been doing this just a little bit longer. You know, let's watch this, see what happens. You know, and he you know likes the show. I love it because to me it really breaks down what it looks like when you go out on an investigation. You know, the it actually
Gotcha.
brings it to light to where you're actually okay. This is how it really happens. Um, the shows I think now are just for example, last night I was watching Ghost Adventures, and I watch it occasionally. I don't watch it a lot. I'm not a real huge fan, but you know, I was watching stuff, and I'm just like, you know, it's weird how one person says they're cold, and then the person 8 feet from them says they're cold, and then the person, you know, 20 feet the opposite direction is like, I'm freezing now, you know, and they all
Hmm.
go into like this big the room just turned cold and this and that, da 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 da, and it's just one of those things where for me that's really hard to believe that that
Okay.
actually happens unless you're in like a really really concentrated area. that has a lot of
Okay.
spirits.
Gotcha. So yeah, it's not like you said that instantaneous and pervasive through the space. It's very subtle,
Right.
and that's
Yes.
why you can
Yep.
pick up on it and others wouldn't.
Hmm.
Um, so I was wondering, you definitely encounter, like, aside from Craig, you definitely encounter, I'm sure, your plethora of skeptics.
Hmm.
Um, so what do you find you do to establish your credibility with them or others, or do you find yourself doing?
I think it's to be on. I mean, to be like completely honest, when we started this, that was kind of one of our mission statements was like we are going to do the best job that we think we can do, and that's always been our thing because if it's something like where if it's out of state or something like that that we can't do, we'll tell them, hey, we can't make it. There are a lot of teams or people that be like, yeah, I'll be right there, and it doesn't happen. So we've always followed that. Okay, if I say we're going to be there, we're there, regardless. If if the research is out and we've done over homework and we know for sure there's a possibility, and we will go and see what we can do. Um, I just think somewhat there are a lot of people and teams in it at this point because it's gotten so big and blown out of proportion. I
And like
guess
sensationalized, or
it's a
yeah.
yes, it's huge, and there are one team in Knoxville. I'm not going to mention any names, and they're all about going to the haunted hotspots.
Okay.
They go to the places you have to pay to go, and we've been to those places. We've been there. I'm not saying it in any kind of conceited manner. It's just some of the places are pretty insane. Don't get me wrong. But we started out as a face to face with the client. What kind of issues are you having? More of a okay, we're here. We can help you no matter what it takes. This is what we're going to do our best to do it. And if we can't get it done, we know people and we'll forward it along.
Gotcha. So you're not like looking to pick up those big headline jobs. Even if it seems like a more mundane job, it doesn't
Yes.
matter.
No.
You're there for it. And
Right. Yeah.
again, it sounds like they're more so going to those really concentrated spots, or, with a lot of presence,
Mhm.
and it's,
Yeah.
easier
It's
to, yeah, pick
yeah.
up
Yeah.
on it.
Yeah. Because what I've noticed is when I talk to other paranormal investigators or people that's interested in the paranormal field, is that when you're looking at a couple or an individual or a family face to face and you're having to explain to them what's going on and you don't have a degree, you don't have doctorate, you have no schooling whatsoever for this.
Right. There's no
And
credential you can get.
no, no, there's nothing that you can get. And you have to like really be sincere, and because you want to help them. And I think that's a big thing of what kind of the paranormal field has lost, I guess, at this point. And I said this is just my opinion, but we don't. If something comes along, yeah, we're on a TV show, whatever, great. That's awesome. But at the same time, we can't forget where we came from, and what made us who we are as a team.
Absolutely. And I mean, just as you said, just because you have a TV show, that's not credibility. There's plenty,
Mm.
I'm sure, of
Yeah.
shows that,
Mhm.
you know, market themselves as being reality or documentary, and you're like,
Right.
you can call BS on that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
No, yeah, yeah, exactly. And I was wondering, like, what would you say it takes to be a paranormal investigator? Like skills, techniques, tools of the trade that you feel comfortable sharing. You don't have to like give away big secrets, but
It
just like, yeah.
For me personally, it's patience.
Mm.
Um, I think I was born with a certain amount of patience. Um, that maybe not everyone has, I guess. But it's when you're going through film for 6, 8 hours, going, and then you go to audio for 4 or 5 hours, and you take a 3 or 4 hour rest, and then you go right back to it. You can't just sit there and fast forward, fast forward. Oh, I got something. Oh, this is over here. Look at this. I mean, you're watching 4 screens, 6 screens, whatever. And you're really trying to figure out if there is something there, or figure out what's going on.
Gotcha. No, that makes a lot of sense. And you touched on, your childhood and your natural disposition. And I know you describe yourself as an empath, and
Mm.
you had an experience at 6.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely you probably people that are more sensitive and connected emotionally, even to, just other humans, probably are
Yeah.
then.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
It
Yeah, I would
is.
love to. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. I tend to talk with my hands and
No,
then
no,
the
I do
mic.
that a lot too. So I'm like, hold them right here. I'm like, oh, you're good.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, I would love to hear, like, okay, being like, if you're naturally inclined to being an empath, that is going to lend you to being more sensitive to these things. I would love to hear more about that, or your insights about that, having grown up as an empath and
Yeah.
having had an experience at 6.
Yeah, it was really, it's kind of a long story, but I'll make it short. I was staying.
We're all
We
good.
went to visit my great grandmother on my dad's side in the hills of
Wow.
Kentucky, and I'm talking like hills. It's dirt road. That kind of stuff. Um, she had like a little farm house, and she was probably one of my, I don't know, probably one of my favorite great grannies, because she was really cool, and she let me do whatever I want. She was like that. And I was playing, and I asked them, I said, I gotta go to the restroom. They're like, well, what's upstairs? And I'm like, okay. Well, this in her house, she had to walk up 2 flights of stairs. So it was up a flight, landing, up a flight, and then you had a long hallway with 3 doors on each side. So, and the bathroom was at the very end of the hall. So, I'm 6, and I'm like, okay, let's make this quick. And
Hmm.
as I literally dash down to the bathroom, shut the door, do my business, and then as I'm washing my hands, I hear the door, and the door just rattling, and it has a skeleton key holes, underneath the door handle. So I'm like, okay. Um, and it was like a calmness kind of came over me, but I was still like, I'm freaking out because I'm 6 and I have no idea what's happening. And so I'm kind of looking through the keyhole, and there's like nothing there. It's like it's kind of black, and I'm like, I turned the hot light on. I remember I did. And, so I'm looking through it, and the door just keeps, ching, 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 just banging. And I'm like, the door handle. I'm like, okay. So there was a little small window there. So I remember I turned and I looked out the window, and I was like, you've got to do this now. If you're not going to do this now, you're going to be stuck up here until somebody comes and gets you. And so I opened the door, and there was like this figure standing there, and it was a full figure. And when I looked at the figure, I knew who that was. I didn't know him by name, but the, the presence, the energy was familiar, and I had no idea. And then my, I was they I get tongue tied when I talk about it, because the figure was standing there, and I looked like kind of beside him, like back down the hallway, and all the doors were open. And I'm like, no, they were shut, you know? So as I'm looking, I remember I turned, I shut the door real quick, and I couldn't remember if the figure was still there or not. Like, I was just in panic mode. So I get to the down the first flight of stairs. I'm standing there, and I'm like, okay, I can't freak out because my dad's ex-military. They're both very religious. Da da da. And so I get myself composed, and I hear all the doors open back up upstairs, because I'm on this landing. So it's like 8 or 10 steps to go, and I hear like all these doors open, click 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 click, and I freaked out again. So I went downstairs and got some water, and I didn't say nothing to anybody, like, at
Wow.
all, because I was like, I can't, like, they're gonna think I'm a nut. And this was the early '80s, so 83. No, it was 80, 81, somewhere around in there. So I don't say nothing to anybody, but every time we went to the house, I started making it like, okay, let's figure this out. And I'm 6, and I'm already sitting there trying to see what's happening. And I remember I would go up to that bathroom 2 or 3 times just to see what would happen because I was curious. I was very curious on. I saw this person, da da da. I want to know. We'll fast forward years later, talking to my mom, and she's like, "Well, we stayed in that house when you were a baby, and we stayed. You were in the middle room to the left. We were the next room over, and um." She said, I would get up in the middle of the night, check on you and stuff. And, at one point, the rocking chair was rocking beside you and you were covered back up. And I'm like, and I'm getting like chill bumps as I'm
Yeah, me
saying this.
too.
And I'm like, oh, well, okay, that's cool. I didn't tell anything about what happened to me. I was just kind of playing it cool, And I was like, I said, what was going on? And she's like, she goes, the longer we stayed there, I could kept hearing a woman hunt, and it was a very low, soft, just you know. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, that's freaking me out a little bit. And I was in my teens when I was talking to her, and I finally just broke down. And I was like, look, this is what happened, da da da. And she was like, okay. So she goes, let me explain. She goes, your great grandmother, her brother and sister-in-law had stayed there with her, and they had moved, and then they passed away. And apparently there's other family members there too that had passed away on the property that I didn't know until like later on, or and I'm like, okay, this explains a lot. And being a teenager, I just kind of brushed it off to the side because I got other important things to do and this and that, and never thought anything about it. I was real big into church, real big into the activities and this and that. And then I turned 18, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna do what I want to do. I'm an
Love
adult,
it.
and of course, I was living on my own at 17. So I was like, I can't do nothing right now. I can't do nothing too crazy. When I turned 18, I went nuts. I was reading everything I could read on like witchcraft and horoscopes, and
Mm-hmm.
and there wasn't an
Anything
internet, so
mystical. Yeah.
yes, anything. So I was checking these books out at the library left and right, and just filling my brain with as much as possible because I started realizing that as an empath, I really, if I got around a certain group of people, my night was horrible, or people at work, or but if I went to another group of people, it was great. I had the best time ever. So I had to learn the discernment between, okay, the gift I have, let's figure out how to use it to some extent to get me through what I need to get through. And then, early 20s, yeah, I forgot all about. I didn't forget about it. It was still there. I just decided to push it off a little bit. Hey, this is whatever it is. I had a lot of life, traumatic stuff in life happen, and I'm like, okay, I got bigger stuff to deal with. And then all of a sudden, it just like hit me one day, and I'm like, dude, what are you doing? You're working, you're doing this, you have something that can actually help people. Here I go again. Internet was up by that time, and God, I sound old when I say that. And so, I was online every free moment. I was on there, and I was like trying to find stuff, searching for stuff, reading stuff, whatever I could find. I was reading it and searching it, and it just so happened in my, I guess probably early 30s, I had met a um, I'm trying to think of the best way to describe it, but it was a voodoo priestess, and
Okay.
it was interesting to me because she lived by her own certain rules. Nothing really governed her on what she did, and we became friends and stuff. And it was really weird because she was teaching me how to do stuff without teaching me how to do stuff. And as I hung out with her and her friends and stuff like that, I started picking stuff up, and like, oh, okay. So this in the movies, this is how it's portrayed, but this is actually how you do it. And I started learning stuff and figuring stuff out. And I'm like, then I started thinking, I was like, man, this movie stuff is not really for me. It's not my niche or my thing. And then I was like, well, let me go back to church, see what happens.
Mm.
So, and go back to church for a while, and I was like, and this is not it for me either. And I'm starting to study other religions, and I'm really starting to dig deep back into it. And I came to the realization that I'm not a religious person, and
Mm.
that kind of stuck with me. And being in the South and being in the Bible Belt is it's better now than it was, but it's not. Then it was still like looked upon because my family was super religious. You know, you're not gonna get anywhere unless you read your Bible and pray and da 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 da. And I'm like, doing pretty good, you know, not giving my tithes every Sunday and and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm studying other stuff and they call it worldly, but it
Mm.
helped me out in the long run. It kind of made me who I am today.
Amazing. That's, yeah, it's so important because, like, when you are doing something as, like, that's large of a breadth as, like, the spiritual or paranormal, you
Mhm.
need to be able to grab from all these different resources
Right.
and have knowledge of many different cultures and many different religions and how they approach it, so you can kind of start connecting dots and take
Mhm.
what works and leave what doesn't. And it's really
Yeah.
cool that you had that experience with the voodoo priestess,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
Again,
It
like, a
was.
really great way into that.
It was. It really opened my eyes to a lot of earthy stuff. And I say
Mm,
that because it's growing up I was the best way I can put it is I was city and I was country at the same time.
gotcha.
And I kind of had the best of both worlds because in the summers I would go up to Kentucky and do whatever I wanted to do for 3 months. Live out in the woods, camp, fish, hunt, whatever. But when school started back, I was back down in the city. So it was like
Hmm.
those two, areas kind of shaped me to kind of do this. And now that I look back on it, I'm pretty thankful for that.
No,
A lot
yeah,
thankful
wow.
more than I was in my 20s.
Yes, it's funny how that happens when you don't have it anymore. You're like, you realize how it was integral to becoming who you are. And I love
Yeah.
that you mentioned that, because yes, witchcraft and any of that kind of spiritualism in that way, it is very much getting back to nature and
Hmm.
everything. So
Yeah. And
yeah, that's
I just
awesome.
wish a lot more people would understand that. I wish they would,
Yeah.
be just a little bit more open minded and
Hmm.
check some stuff out and kind of do that whole thing of, hey, it's not for me, or hey,
Exactly.
I'm digging this part. Maybe I can use this and something I learned over here and kind of make
I
my
agree.
own, type deal. And
Yes.
it would be nice if people would do that. That's a thing.
It would be very nice. Yeah, it's just about, awareness and yeah, really dispelling what it is
Mhm.
to be interested in, I guess, mysticism or witchcraft or spirituality, that
Right.
it's not necessarily being satanic, it's not
Well,
evil, it is nature, like,
exactly. And that's
yes.
that's one thing that I think me and Craig, are both pretty. We get along pretty much everybody. So
Hmm.
it doesn't matter, if you're Muslim or you're Hindu or you're, into voodoo or witchcraft or black magic or whatever it is your thing.
Hmm.
That's cool. You do your thing. I'm not saying I might not call you sometime, be like, hey, I got this question or got this problem, can you help me? And
Hmm.
that has served us well over the years. And being in the paranormal, it's like you gotta have those little niches or little ends to be able to do that.
Absolutely, because it's like you were saying, like, if you find a particular kind of job, or and there's an entity and you're like, okay, this is out of our wheelhouse, then you have a
Right.
reference, or you can defer to them for their expertise.
Right.
So
Yes.
yeah,
Yep. Yes.
definitely casting a wider net and just like
It,
kind of like helps ground the business and everything.
right.
I was wondering what a typical, like, caller or job looks like for you.
It basically starts out with an email, phone call, text message. Um, it's when I get it. it's kind of crazy for me to say, but when I do receive a phone call, email, text message, whatever, it's like, okay, I get super excited, like a kid at Christmas. I'm like, oh, birthday. I'm like, okay, here we go. And I have to call Craig, and I'm like, Craig, I got the, just got this email, phone call, whatever, and this is what's going on. And he's like, okay, that's it. He's like,
Okay.
okay, sounds good. Just get in contact with them, whatever. And I'm freaking out, because I'm like, I'm hopped up and I'm ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just like, we got, he's like, what we got to do before we go out there. And I'm like, I know. So
Mm.
it's one of those deals. And I kind of come back to earth, and then, we start our process. Um,
Okay.
but it's mainly contacting them. And 9 times out of 10, I can tell if I talk to them on the phone if it's the real deal or not. By their
Okay.
voice, by the things they say. Um, I've even had people coach people on the
Hmm.
phone, and then when we get out there, when we give them we have a 3-page 30 questionnaire that we give every client. We ask them to fill it out truthfully, and it goes in our file, and it's isn't seen by anybody else but me and Craig. And if they look at it and they're like, no, I can't answer some of these questions. I'm like,
Hmm.
that's interesting. Okay.
Okay.
And some of them are pretty provocative, pretty, pretty out there questions. So
Okay.
it's a pretty detailed description of what's going on, not only in their personal life, but in their spiritual life as well.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, and only go into as much detail as you're like comfortable with. I would,
Okay.
it's just interesting hearing like how that basically can lead you to understanding one, if there is an entity, and two, what kind it is, or how, the questionnaire, I guess the purpose of it.
It is, because we've even been at clients' houses, and they have actually, we always try to meet them off site first,
Hmm.
restaurant, parking lot, something, to talk to them one on one. We do that,
I
and then we
see.
kind of get a feel for them, and then we go. We decide, okay, this Thursday we're going to be out or whatever, and we've done that. They've answered the questions, and we get out there, and I'm like, okay, we went over your questionnaire, da da da, and it says here you're not taking any kind of prescription medicine.
Hmm.
And I'm not a doctor; it's not necessarily my place to ask, but if you're checking around the house and you see prescription bottles, and it's for a mood enhancer, stabilizer, or whatever,
Hmm.
you got to ask questions, because okay, so you are on anxiety medicine.
Hmm.
Okay, so okay, that explains a little bit. Okay, so
And like,
you
how
know,
consistent are you with those? Like, are
right.
you?
That's
Yes.
the thing, is it daily?
Yes.
Is it, do you take them sometimes? Do you,
Right.
because the medication a lot of times will get
Side
people
effects. Yeah.
in that state, and they start hallucinating, and they swear they see something.
Okay. Yeah,
And
yes.
it's a real, I kind of feel bad sometimes in a way, but this is what we do.
Mm,
And we want to make sure they're safe, we're safe, everybody's good,
exactly.
and if there is something there, then we can take care of it for them.
Hmm.
But we can't do it if they're heavily medicated, or
Yes.
if
And
they're
not
on
to
anxiety
mention
medicine.
recreational drugs too.
Yes, yes,
So you have
yeah,
to rule that out, absolutely. And
yeah,
even, at a certain age, being I do have my BA in psychology, certain ages, primarily late teens and 20s, certain mental illness disorders that like run in the families might start surfacing if there's stress involved and everything. So again, that's
right,
probably part of what you have to rule out,
yeah,
in approaching these jobs. So yeah, that's
yeah,
fascinating. Wow. It's good
yeah.
that you do your due diligence like that. Very
That
necessary.
that's what we started. First couple of times we went out to investigate, we were like, with people we knew, so we were like, we'll go see if it's credible, and the first time. on an actual investigation. We It was pretty insane. So it worked out, I guess, to
Okay.
both sides' benefit because we got to actually experience stuff that we had only saw on TV. We were trained ourselves to look for these things, so it was really cool to actually to be able to do it and to know that the people, the clients at their house we went to were very open
Mm,
and nonchalant. They were very, very nonchalant. They were like, okay, this is this, da 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 da, and here it is. We're gonna leave, and you got to run to the place. Uh,
gotcha.
so it was
So
pretty
they
cool.
trusted you, and that, yeah,
Yes, yes,
important.
yeah,
And then you got to
very cool.
basically just like throw into the sharks, learn on the job,
Yeah,
basically.
and that's kind of like in this. This is kind of the only way that you can
Hmm.
really do it. You're doing things, and you're like, I don't know if that's right or if it's not right, or
Mm,
is this, are we really helping the client? Are we hurting the client more? Is it,
mm,
because you don't necessarily know. So we try to have an open communication too with them, be like, hey, stop us or whatever if it's something you don't like, or that if you need to leave the house, you can, or you want us to leave, whatever you need us to do, you let us know. And I find that to be very beneficial because a lot of times we will keep an open dialogue with them and communication,
absolutely.
and that
Yes.
helps out a lot because you find out a lot more about your client that way than you would if it was um, kind of a small talk and then, oh, you
Yeah.
got
And
ghosts, huh? Let's go see.
yes. It reminds me of basically what you do, and again, having looked into pursuing psychology professionally, and I might be considering going back to that and incorporating it into, yeah, my life. But you almost are building that client and almost therapist relationship
Yeah,
of trust and to
yeah,
doing the intake because that's literally what you do.
mm,
You have to do an intake and an inventory basically when you're
right,
receiving a client.
yeah,
So that's, yeah, super fascinating and cool. And again, like just establishing that credibility on your
mm,
end.
right.
That, yeah, you're,
Yeah,
it's
because
not
we've
for
had some,
funsies.
yeah, we've had so many people get a hold of us in the past, and like, so and so came out here, and they want to charge us for this. They want to do this or that, and da 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 da. And I'm like, what do you mean? How long were they out there? Did they go over everything with you? It's kind of a business, but it's not at the same time. It's
Okay.
really it's a I don't
A
really know how to describe
service
it. Yeah,
almost.
and
Yeah.
the what was it? I think the last the last people to contact us like that, it was they had contacted us and want us to come out. They paid this team $400, come out and bless their house, and and this and that, and they were having problems, and all this, and they came out, blessed the house, and left, took their money and left. And
Jeez.
and I'm like, "So, are you serious right now?" And she's like, "Yeah, we're serious."
So you hear about the
And
other, like,
the
yeah,
other yeah, the other side. And that's
gotcha.
one thing that we pride ourselves on, is we do not charge to come out to your residence or business.
Gotcha.
It's a free service
Wow.
because we feel like if we charge, then we wouldn't really be fulfilling what we should be doing.
Gotcha.
So,
Wow, that's amazing. So yeah, it's a calling, really. It's wow,
yeah,
that's incredible. And I wanted to ask because you kind of touched on this with side
yeah,
effects from medication and
yes,
also, if someone's taking recreational drugs, what are
right.
some things that people might mistaken for paranormal activity but had turned out to be false alarms or just common things that one might mistaken for like a paranormal occurrence but isn't?
Because we've had people contact us when their bathroom faucets are dripping
When they're
and they
oh.
freak out.
That's what
So
I wanted to ask you.
they're
Any
like,
false alarms, like things that like
they're at home and it's quiet and they got to watch
yeah.
TV or whatever, and they hear this like tick 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 tick. And they're like, we don't have a clock anywhere, and then they're walking the house trying to figure stuff out, and or maybe maybe the commode is running possibly, but it's not that loud, or
Oh, the
When
commode.
you
Yeah,
hear
yeah. It's like
commode,
just kind
yeah,
of
or
running, like
it,
that humming
yeah, it
noise.
might be
They
running
just need
real
to
low,
put
humming,
the
and
little lever down a little bit. There's your problem.
but you don't think about that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
when if you're home alone or
Yeah.
whatever, and then you just all of a sudden you're like,
You're just in
okay, because
defense. You're all
yeah,
instinct.
yeah,
Yeah, I wanted to ask about that. Like what funny like false alarms, and that's great. Thank you for that. Just
you're
if
welcome.
you think you might be having a haunting, it might just be your toilet running. Yeah.
It's possible, yeah. It's stranger things have happened. So yeah,
Good to know. Good to know.
actually went out, and it was an older client, and she was, I I would say, I'm just going to say mid 50s.
Okay.
Okay, she has or had an antique business, and this is not one of the craziest ones, but it's up there. So we went out, talked to her and everything, and her house was built 200 years ago, right at it at that time.
Okay.
And she would fly to Paris, Italy, France, all these places, and buy antique full bedroom sets, dining room sets, stuff, and bring them back. And she would showcase her home and sell them.
Okay.
And and I'm like, because walking into the house, you literally thought you were dressed for the wrong time period. I mean, it was that crazy.
Amazing. Dang.
And
So like
I looked,
late 1800s or like 19
yes,
early. Yeah,
yeah,
wow.
it was insane. And I'm a huge history buff, so I'm looking at all this, these pieces, and that'll look great in my living room, or that'll look great in my, and
Yeah, I
I'm like,
probably would
I
too
can
because I
shop,
love
you know,
Victorian era. Yep.
and that was the thing. I was like, I need to shop. Let's go. You're ready to do this. I'm like, okay, I had to reel myself back in,
Love
and
that. I would probably be the same.
it was bad. And so we're talking to
Gotta
her, and
control
we're going
yourself.
through it, and ended up it was part of, it had some, if I remember correctly, in the basement there was a slave quarter, um, that was there.
Wow.
Of course, over the years, it's been added on. You know, different stuff's been done, and so, but it was still a dirt floor, um, and all that. And the attic was pretty creepy too, because it was a full attic. So you can imagine.
Okay. So this is like a Victorian home, like you said.
Yes, yes,
Like a proper attic.
it's
Yeah.
3 levels, full
Gosh.
basement, full attic. I mean, it's the real deal. Like,
Dang.
and it's even on the National Historical Registry,
Okay. Landmark,
for
basically.
Tennessee. And and as I was so excited going into this, that like, man, this is one of our first like historical houses, and
Yes.
and we get there and we start talking to the lady, and it's insane. She's all over the place. She's over here, she's over there. She lives by herself, and her most common complaint that we heard over and over and over again was that she was being attacked in her sleep
Oh
sexually.
gosh. No.
Yes.
Terror. Oh gosh.
And I'm like, okay, I've heard about this. I've read all kinds of stuff on it. I have never personally dealt with it.
Mm-hmm.
So, we talked to her and everything. She answers our questions. She's very, very truthful. We actually video the client as we're talking to them. We're like, hey, we can go over these questions with you, or if you want to sit there and answer them, that's fine, but we need to video you, so that way we know everything is good. And we get through all that, and we just start hearing this like pummeling up in the attic, and it's like somebody's like took a bowling ball and dropped it and rolling it across the ceiling. And
Okay.
there's nothing up there but like junk. I mean, it's like
An attic.
boxes and
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff. It's like that attic you would see on like a scary movie, basically.
Yeah.
And so there's like a full set of stairs that go up to this, and there's a half glass door that leads up to it.
Hmm.
So Craig's like, "Well, I'm gonna run up there real quick and check." And I'm like, "Okay." So we stopped what we were doing, went over, and there was a figure standing there in front of that stained glass door. And Craig stops, and I see his face. He doesn't say anything, and I'm like, "You saw it, didn't you?" And he was like, "Yeah, he's standing right here, this figure in the doorway," and he points like to his right, and I'm going, I know where the door is, and in my mind, so I kind of walk up a little bit, and it just vanished. So Craig whips the door open, we run upstairs, and there's nothing at all.
Hmm.
And I'm like, okay, this is really strange. So we go back down, finish our little interview, and get ready to leave. And she had all the lights on in the house. This lady was kind of terrified to stay by herself. But it was
Hmm.
weird because she would kind of invite it to at the same time.
Hmm.
She was going out of country, buying this furniture, not necessarily asking permission from the furniture or what's attached to be like, hey, is this
Hmm.
person selling you? I know this sounds insanely crazy, but yeah,
It's similar to witchcraft, actually. Like if you
it,
do want to, use like plants, like if you go foraging, you are supposed
yeah,
to ask permission from the plant
yes,
and,
yeah,
either leave an offering or thank it. And,
yes,
hey, yeah, I agree. Like it sounds crazy to, the average person, but
hmm,
I think it's worth doing and honoring, especially, and I very much like went to, college, got almost like a soft science bachelor's degree
yeah,
in psychology, but I still had to take a lot of hard science classes, and we definitely had to learn the scientific method and everything. So
hmm,
I'm still very rooted in the scientific method. But there's
for sure,
just, again, and a lot of people have said this time and time again, there's so much we don't know. So for everything we
there's
don't
a
have
lot,
an explanation for, you
yeah,
have to allow for room for that. And I do believe in
yes,
energy. I do believe in,
mhm,
as you, I do identify, sorry again, as an empath, and I definitely pick up energies. I so identify with what you said about, like, you'll just randomly kind of feel icky or in a bad mood, and you're like, well, what
and
was the vibe of the place I was at? Oh,
yeah,
yeah. So, with that being said, I definitely believe in energy. And it's weird. I've had instances where I'll wear a crystal, and before I knew that you needed to cleanse it, for example, I would have weird interactions with people, not knowing that there was like energy transference in it. And I'd be like, that
yeah,
feels so much like the energy of the person who gave this to me. And I would talk to like my
mhm,
sister in law, who's more aware of that stuff. And she's like, well, did you cleanse it? Did you sage it? And I was like, no. And then she's like, yeah, it can pick up that energy, And I'm like, that. And then I did it a second time. I totally forgot. She told me that. And same thing. I had weird interactions with people. And it was a very, my friend, like Kate interaction. And I'm like, what's going on? So I do leave
yeah,
room for, and I was explaining it to someone once, and they were like, they said it like in such a perfect way. They were like, magic is science that hasn't been discovered yet. And I'm like, oh, thank you for that. I love that. So
yeah,
yeah, I very much like agree and feel like there is something in it that, like, energy. I don't know, I'm sure that maybe in years to come we'll be able to explain what the transference is and how it works. And I
yeah,
mean, I'm sure there's even like with quantum physics, like stuff explaining it already that I haven't caught on to that other people
right,
know about. But yeah, so I see what you're saying. Like, she's getting these
yeah,
antiques and, just kind of like, oh, they're cool collectibles or great things to
mhm,
sell, beautiful items, pieces of art, what have
yeah,
you, and just not thinking about what you're bringing in.
yes, yeah. That was the main thing, and we were trying to explain it to her and stuff, and she had no part of it. I mean, that was her
Okay.
business, so I was like, look, if you just ask, you don't have to be any type of way. Just be like, hey, you're moving to a new state, you're moving to my house, da da
Mm,
da. Everything's gonna be fine. I really don't want you to come with the piece of furniture,
yeah.
you know, but she had this, I think it was like a 24 drawer dresser, and it was massive,
Wow.
and it had like this big it was like 4.5 5 foot mirror that came up. It didn't cover the whole sides. It was like kind of right in the middle,
Okay.
and all the furniture had came from Belgium, and I thought, oh, okay, it was nice, antique and stuff. And so I walk in there, and there's no lights on. I shut the door. I'm snapping my pictures and stuff, and I'm like, man, this dresser is really cool. And look at
Mm.
all this room. I'm shopping. I'm like, oh, look at all this
Yes.
room and da. I can do all this stuff. And then I'm like, I need to take some pictures. So I'm about 6 to 8 foot away, and I started snapping pictures. And digital was decent then, but like we're not going to check them or anything. Wait till we get home, put them on the laptop, the next day and everything. And I counted. Um, there was at least 10 faces in that mirror, and the mirror was clean. It wasn't, it had a little bit of the tarnish on it from being so old,
Mm-hmm.
but there was no smudges or anything like that. And I was like, this is crazy. And I could see top hats and like, all kinds of stuff in the glass, and it was extremely unnerving. And we showed her the picture. That was just one of them, and we caught an apparition in a fireplace too, which was really crazy. Um,
Could she
but
see it
with that,
in the photos? The
yes, yeah. I mean, she was like,
dang.
"Oh yeah, I can see the outline stuff." She goes, "But it's okay. It's don't just you know." And I was like, "So are they the good guys or the bad guys? What's going on there? Because we kind of need to know." I was trying to really be patient and explain it, and she finally just told her, she's like, "Okay, guys, you've done what you can do. Go ahead and leave." And then she calls this famous exorcist, just still out doing stuff today, and calls him, pays for his plane ticket out, and he spends the night and everything. So we were scheduled. We went back the next morning to get all of our equipment and stuff, and then we went in, and it felt the same to me. Like nothing changed. Like nothing was. Everything was the same. And we were talking to him and stuff. He was saying, "Oh yeah, I got rid of it. And it's gone." And da da da. And I was like, "So," I said, "The bedroom suite up in the first bedroom that you come to on the right." I said, "Do you know where that was made? Do you know?" And he's like, "No." So, well, did you cleanse that room and get everything out of it? Because that's where a lot of your spirits are coming from. And I was showing pictures. He goes, "Oh, that's just a glare," and da da da. And I'm like, "Okay." It wasn't probably a month after that we she moved. We never heard from her again. It was so weird. Like,
Okay.
because we tried to keep in touch with her and say, "Hey,
How,
we
yeah.
want to help you with this because your business could be successful if we can help you. You bring new furniture in, we'll check it out, cleanse
Mm.
it, whatever, and you'll be on your way." It was just one of those weird cases where everything was there, everything was happening. We got tons of evidence. The dowsing rods were even going crazy. I mean, it was like you'd ask question, boom, they'd hit, and you're like, okay, this is like serious stuff here. And after the guy came out and blessed the house and everything, she was like, I'm done. I'm moving. And I don't know if it was because of him blessing the house made it worse
Oh
or not
shoot.
worse or whatever, but it was crazy.
Oh
Yeah.
man. Wow, that is fascinating. I was going to ask about how spirits like kind of people, places, things are these are all things that spirits and entities do like connect to, and I was
Mhm.
wondering if you could like elaborate on that or if you
Over,
have insight.
I think I've kind of grown into it really because over the year, I mean, I never really used to believe that honestly,
Okay.
um, until really started studying other religions, and it,
Mm.
it really it stuck with me that um, everything basically has a spirit, like the grass and the dirt and the trees and the leaves and the birds and and even
Like animism, I believe is, yeah,
yes,
like everything is mhm.
yes, and even and I tell people all the time, I'm like, even the soda can that you just got out of the machine. Somebody's touched it. Probably 8 or 10 or 100 people. So
Mhm.
their imprint is left on that. When you open it up and you grab it and drink it, whatever, and you throw it in a recycle bin, and you don't think about that. I don't think about that. I mean, even now it doesn't really register a lot of times. Like I'm like,
Oh
okay.
God.
And I used to be
Yes.
the biggest like thrift store shopper ever. Like, I'd go and it would be like, "Oh yeah, this tie's cool, the shirt's cool, whatever." I'll get them. And I never really thought about it much. I'd bring them home, wash them, wear them, and
Mhm.
stuff like that. And I was like, okay, this is cool. But when I started diving really deeper later on, I started figuring, I was like, okay, okay, this makes sense now. Like what? Because I collect antiques or stuff that has spirits attached to them. Um, so it was hard for me at first doing what I do, but I'm like, but I really like this 1942 Bilko radio console. I really like it. This is what I want. This, da, da, da. And I bought it. Just and it's I've had it for like 10, 15 years now, and
Okay.
I know there's something attached to it, and it doesn't bother me. It's like it's one of those things. It's just the way it is. But I have got other things that I'm like, okay, you're going in here, you're going in the drawer, you're going in a box, and stuff like that. Because a lot of times things just like the Ouija board, it's that thing where if you open it, you got to close it. So it's the
Mm,
same thing with like items. If it's something that you're dealing with spiritually or in paranormal, it's the same thing. And
okay.
a lot of people lose time track of that or think about it, and I do it myself because I'm like, okay. And a good example is a friend of mine actually made me a 3D um, death whistle, Mayan death whistle,
I think
and
I saw that. Yeah, can you
and
explain what that is? Or like, yeah, you probably are
it's
going into it.
I've wanted one forever. Like
And it looked like a skull. It was like a
it's
green skull on your
yes, and
page.
the real ones are more. They're bigger and they're wooden, um, but the Mayans used to blow the whistle, and it literally sounds like a woman screaming or a high pitched squeal. So that would scare
Or
away
like a banshee
potential.
or some.
Uh,
Or like a banshee, maybe. I'm not sure, I guess, what a
Kinda,
banshee
yeah,
sounds
like a
like.
like a banshee scream, but it would be
Okay.
like these. It's so high pitch
Okay.
that they would think something's happening, or they don't want to go to feed them because they have all these people or whatever, and they're crazy.
Okay.
And
So
but
it
I
would
got
scare
that.
away entities, or I
Yes,
just want to make sure I'm
yeah,
clear.
entities and
Oh my
stuff like that.
gosh.
And then when I got it, I was like, man, this is the coolest thing ever because, and when you use it, it's super high pitch. And I'm like, yeah, I can see it if I'm in the middle of the forest, and somebody has this whistle and they're blowing it, and you're like, okay, this is kind of creepy. This is kind of weird, like it
So
would
it
warn
sooers away
me.
people too that you maybe
Yeah,
you want
exactly. I'd be like,
you want
I'm out of
the
here,
campsite to yourself. Or
exactly. But that was really cool, and
dang.
when because I studied them for so long, and I'm like, this is such a fascinating
Ooh.
piece of history,
Mm,
and it was connected to the Mayans, so I was like, this is perfect. So when he gave it to me, I
I
was like,
want one.
dude, this is awesome. It's not real, and I'm happy it's not real
Okay.
because there's probably stuff will be attached to it, I'm
I
sure.
was gonna say.
And I was like, but this is a great, replica of what it would be like, today. So it was pretty awesome.
That's so cool. Are you going to use it as part of your like tools for actually like, doing your investigations or like cleansing or
Yes, that yeah, I'm gonna
oh,
take it on
amazing.
probably our next investigation.
Okay,
The
very
next public
good.
one we have, then I'll probably take it and see if it freaks people out. Because even when I blow the whistle, it still freaks me out sometimes because it's real big.
Dude, fantastic. Yeah, I wanted to I guess touch on a few things on like what is in a paranormal investigator detective's toolkit. If you like whatever you want to share about
Um,
that without giving
we
away too.
we're pretty basic in what we have.
Okay.
I mean, we've got a couple of night vision video cameras. We've got a DVR system. We've got some dowsing rods. We have the steel cameras. Um, we've got voice recorders. Um, it's basic stuff that we use.
Gotcha.
And honestly, we both work full time. This is kind of like our thing, and it's
So it's like a
gotten so
passion. Yeah, like,
expensive, yeah, to buy this stuff, buy the equipment,
okay.
and you're like, okay, realistically, how many investigations are you going to go on where you're really going to need a table full of equipment?
Right.
Like, are you really going to use all this stuff, spend all this money, and is it going to be beneficial? And that's kind of the thing. So we just keep it really simple,
Yeah, the
and
basics.
it's very basic. Yes.
No, yeah. Uh, if you don't need it to be super fancy, and also like you have enough of your own intuition and gift
Mhm.
to be able to sense things, then
Right.
that camera, voice recorder, still camera is all you need.
Yeah.
It's funny, my husband, because and my friends really love Phasmophobia. I don't know if you're familiar, and he's like, you can ask him if he ever like heard of or plays Phasmophobia, because yeah, they
Yes.
have the camera, the voice recorder, and then they do the weird like up and down like poses and
Yep.
stuff. It's like a day on the job for me. No, yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I
You're
don't know,
welcome.
is it what kind of recorder? Like, there's like a meter that I don't know senses maybe
Like
frequencies. I don't know.
what is it called?
EK EKG or
We don't use one,
okay, gotcha.
but they have there's one that measures like magnetic fields,
Okay,
um,
gotcha.
and stuff like that. And then there's they have like the spirit boxes or the voice boxes where
Yeah.
they use the white noise and it just constantly keeps going, and
Okay,
you ask questions and get responses that way,
gotcha.
which is pretty neat sometimes. Probably my favorite thing that I like to do is called the Gonsfeld experiment. Um,
Can you repeat that? I want to
oh, I'm
like make
sorry, it's
sure.
the Gonsfeld experiment.
Okay. Gonsfeld experiment.
Yes,
Okay.
and
And yeah, if you can
the
explain
first
that.
time I saw that was on Paranormal State,
Okay.
and I thought this is the coolest thing ever because you can't see, all you can just hear, and you're in a room by yourself, and because you basically what they did was they took ping pong balls, and that's what you're supposed to do, cut them in half, tape them over your eyes, and normally you have a strobe light in front of you. Um, so if you're sensitive, I wouldn't recommend it. But you put a strobe light in front of you, and um, you get set up, and somebody starts it. Basically, you're the voice box for you, and nobody else can hear it, but you hear the white and static noise, and
Okay.
they give you
So it's
it's
like
normally we
sensory
do.
deprivation almost, or like,
Yes, it's very
okay,
weird the first couple of times you do it, so I wouldn't recommend anybody doing it by themselves because
in case something
it's very,
happens.
yeah, you get very off kilter when you're, even when you stand
Oh,
up
sorry.
and start walking around, you're like but
Yeah, it's disorienting, I'm sure.
yes, and but you pick a couple of people if you have them. Normally it's Craig, and we'll be in there, and he'll just ask, I can't hear him, but he'll be asking questions, and it's usually a 10 to 15 seconds in between, and it's incredible how you will hear the responses and you say them, and it's crazy how accurate that is a lot of times,
Okay.
because we did it on one investigation, and I kept hearing this lady's voice, and it was very distinct, and I'm like, now remind y'all this was recorded, so I'm talking out of context. I'm supposed to just be answering the questions. That's all my job at that time was to do. But I'm having a full blown conversation with Craig as he's asking the questions, and that was a little freaky. And
Okay.
it ended up it was this lady's grandmother that was coming through, and she was telling her about this yellow dress and it had flowers on it, these shoes and this and this, and so we stopped. I kept doing my part. Craig, I didn't know Craig walked out of the room, and he went and got the client and came in, and she was very skeptical. She didn't want really nothing to do with it, and Craig kind of was like, okay, ask questions and he'll reply if he gets the message. And
Okay.
and she's, she starts asking, and Craig was like, she mentioned the yellow dress, and there was these certain, kind of cream color shoes, like, from the 40s or 50s, and and all this stuff, and I'm about 10 to 15 minutes in, so I'm really starting to get drained. I'm starting to get very like almost emotional because this is a lot, and
Yeah.
Craig comes over, stops it, and I'm sitting there and I take the ping pong balls off my eyes, and and I'm like sitting there for a minute. And this lady is crying, and she is just in tears, and I'm like, oh God, like we've upset her or whatever. And she's like,
Hmm.
no, that was my grandmother you were
Oh
talking
my
to, because
God.
when they got married, she had that dress on with those shoes, and she goes, I got the picture in the living room, and da da da, and I get chill bumps because I was like,
Yeah,
holy
same.
crap,
I'm
like
like
this
tearing
is,
up.
yeah,
What?
it was insane. And it doesn't happen like that all the time, but that one instance was crazy enough for me that it was just insane, that
Gosh.
experience, and I'm thankful for it because it taught me a lot.
Wow. And I just want to make sure I'm painting the picture. So you have the ping pong balls and ideally a strobe light, and then you
Yeah.
said there's a call box that you kind
No,
of
it's you have
or
headphones on.
okay.
Um, you have headphones on, and it's basically like plugged into the voice box or the white noise box, and
Okay, the white noise box,
nobody
that's
else
what it
can
is.
hear but me.
Okay, dang.
So, if you're there and I'm here and I'm doing it, and you're like, do you know what year it
Okay.
is? And if I hear something, it don't matter what I hear,
What?
I say it.
Okay.
So, you could get random stuff like, purple car or blue car or whatever, and it
Okay.
may not pertain to anything right then, but it'll come into play during the session.
Dang. Okay. So it's like kind of like it's using the medium of the sound waves to be able to connect with you or
Right?
something
Yes.
along those lines.
Yes.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It,
That
it, it's
must be
it's pretty
emotional.
intense. It's pretty cool though. At the same time.
Yes, absolutely. Um, and again, yeah, I wanted to. So once you've confirmed there is an entity, and you have like you just went over your various ways of confirming, um, what is the next step? What and your involvement in either the resolution of a being or entity?
A lot of times we ask the client, every time, but we normally will know their religious preference before going
Okay.
into it. If we go in and if we find out there's something is there, um, we'll cleanse the house, ask the entity to leave, and
Okay.
then we usually tell them like, hey, give it a couple of days, usually the third or fourth day, see what happens, and if it's still going on, call us, and we'll get your religious person to come in and do their blessing and see what happens. And if it keeps
Gotcha.
continuing, we keep going out, like we keep going out till we figure out what it is, or try to help the client the best we can.
Okay. And so, so after cleansing, it'll be like 3 or 4 days to kind of let everything sift out.
Right.
How long does
Yeah.
your involvement in cleansing take? Like,
It's usually 10 minutes. It's
okay.
it's not it's not much. It
Like I
depends on
know,
what.
like I'll do smudging or well, using like sage or
Mhm.
incense and stuff, and also,
Right.
you can speak and kind of put the intention of what you want to clear out. I'm not sure if
Right.
it's a similar process for you guys, but
It's pretty much the same. It's basically
yeah.
we ask them what they want us to use. Do you want holy water? Do you want
Okay.
sage? You want some
Yes.
incense? I mean, what is it that you want, and we'll
Mm-hmm.
make it happen. And do you
Gotcha.
do you want the inside done and the outside, or do you just want certain rooms done, or maybe it's just the bedroom they're having problems with, or the living room? Then
Gotcha.
we'll make sure we get all that contained, and go from there.
Gotcha. Okay. And then, yeah, so yeah, you'll kind of do the initial cleanse and let everything kind of air out. Because I know they always say
Yeah.
like open doors and windows.
Yes.
It's really cool to see that like what you do is very much in alignment with, what we learn about, spirits and energies when
Mm.
it comes to Wicca and the
Right.
various like pagan
Yes.
traditions and stuff. And then
Yes.
so again, like and then that's awesome that you will use their preferred like kind of method of
Mhm.
extermination or ghost bustering or
Yeah,
probably,
that's and
but yeah,
that's a
religion.
lot, and we've had to call, priests or whatever of their
Mm-hmm.
choice at 2 or 3 in the morning, like, hey,
Dang.
you don't know me, and I'm calling you at 2 o'clock in the morning, um,
Yes.
and we get hung up on a
We
lot
need a
when that happens,
priest.
but we call right
Yeah.
back, and then we talk to them, and usually when we say the client's name, they're like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, I know who it is, and then we'll set up a meeting and a time, and then meet them at the residence or business, and go through what they want done. So
Okay. Wow. Okay. And then again, I wanted to ask like if there are different kinds of entities that you've come upon, or if it is mostly like spirits of people that have passed or
there, I've had an encounter with several demonic
okay.
entities. It's nothing near like it's on TV. Like there's
Okay.
no you know like scary music or anything like that.
Mhm.
It's very personable when it does happen. The couple times it's happened to me, the last instance, I was in a basement and Craig was on the second floor.
Oh no, that's so
But
scary. I can't.
it's not too bad, and
Okay.
so it's like it's dark, like you can't see your hand in front of your face, and
Okay.
I'm sitting on this big roll of carpet that they have down there. I don't know, why it's down there. You have no idea. I don't know where
I
it came
mean, it's
from, and this is like
storage.
rolling through my mind, as I just plop down on this roll of carpet. I'm sitting there, and I got my walkie-talkie, and Craig like, okay, we're gonna do radio silence, next 15 minutes. If you need anything, hit me up. Okay, he goes, and I get tickled because he's like, over and out, and I'm like, okay, Roger, and he's like, over and out. We do this little skit, and then it
Okay.
just goes silent because it gets my mind off what's getting ready to happen, or if anything
Okay.
does happen. So I'm down there, it's all quiet,
It's like a
and
ritual.
I heard my name, and I'm like, okay, it came from my right. Now I can't see anything, and I do have a flashlight, but I don't turn it on. And I'm like, okay, I heard that, and I hear this crunching, like walking towards me, and I'm like, okay, I see you now. It's like this dart of black, like just darts back and forth, going left to right, and I'm like, okay, so if you're here, tell yourself, I already know you're here. Like, let's just get this done. I want to know who you are. Da da da. And never provoke because I don't want extremely crazy stuff to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And as I'm sitting there, it's like I hear the microphone just kind of like click, where Craig's wanting to say something, but he doesn't. So, and I'm oblivious. Basically, to my left, there's the red island light from our camera, and
Okay.
that's it. And so I'm sitting there, and I feel this tug on my shoulder, my right shoulder. And I'm like,
Mm.
okay, I'm the only one down here, like I really can't say anything. And I feel this like, it's crazy. It's a moist kind of breath feeling. And this hand just kind of like comes up, like it's opposite, but it comes up on my shoulder and it's like grabs my shoulder. And I'm like, okay, you touched me. I'm allowing it, but, and he says my name again in my ear. And I'm like, okay. And I went through this. It felt like hours, but it was seconds. And I was like, so you're over here now. What do you want? There was a child involved, and I'm like, what's happening, and why are you going there playing with this child's toys, and da 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 da, and and all this stuff, and it just whispers in my ear, and it's like you won't catch me, you won't get rid of me, sort. And I'm like, okay, you're right. And to this day, we have not, because the story was so twisted with this after the fact that we never got a chance to go back. And
Okay.
and it was so insane that, and then I heard my radio click, and Craig was like, it's been about 30 minutes, or, I'm watching you. Are you still good? And I'm like, yeah, you want to come down here and unlock the door so I can get out? And
We got company. Oh my,
he was like, yeah. And I hear him walking down the back steps,
you're like, thank God.
and he opens the door, and it was just like this rush of cold air comes in. And it like felt so, because I was sweating. Like, I didn't realize how hot it was in there. This was like middle of winter. And, so I'm like, okay, so he gets me out, and I walk outside and I stand up, and I'm like, man, this is kind of cool. And he's like, dude, like your jacket's ripped. And I'm like, what? And it's real light, like kind of a windbreaker type jacket on. And it was gray, I remember. And it didn't make any noise when you walked. That's why I wore it on investigations all the time. And he was like, it's ripped. And I'm like, no, dude, whatever. I took it off, and there was like just this much of the jacket was just tore. Like, not the shoulder blade, not in the middle of my back, but like right down my uh, shoulder, I guess. It was right in the middle of my shoulder blade. So I take my jacket off, and I start to
Okay.
freak
How
out
how
because
for anybody like listening auditory, like would you say it was like 4 inches or like or
it was,
bigger? It was like a
I don't,
slash?
it was three marks. So it was the three,
Okay.
and
Like a claw or
yeah, like a
something.
claw kind of, yeah. So, and it's freezing outside, and here I'm like tremendously like sweating. I'm thirsty. I feel like I've been in the desert for 6 weeks. Like all this stuff like come to my mind. And this was in a matter of like 30 minutes, so I didn't think nothing about it. I was in the zone. I was doing what I was supposed to do. And so I pulled my shirt up, and he's like, bro, you're going to take your shirt off. And I took it off, and there was like these marks, and it had to be 6, 7 inches, like just like diagonal down my back, from my top of my shoulder blade all
On
the
your
way down.
skin?
Yeah, yeah. And as soon as it was weird because I was so popped up, and I was everything was flowing. I didn't even feel it. But he's
Yeah,
like,
the
well, we got to get
adrenaline.
some, Bactine on there or something. He's
Yes.
like, this is crazy. And I went upstairs, washed my back and stuff off, and you
Mhm.
could just
Mhm.
see like the three, I mean, just straight down. And I was like, and it sort of made me mad in a way because I told it not to touch me, as in harm me.
Mhm.
And, and I was like, Craig, lock me back in there, like
Ah,
we're going to do it
we're not
again
done.
because, and he was like, no, no, I'm not going to do it. He said, I literally saw your face change on several occasions. And he said, I didn't even click the microphone. He said, but I saw you kept looking for your walkie-talkie, and I'm like, yeah, because I was like, why did you keep beeping in on me? And he was like, I wasn't. He goes, it was something else messing with it. And I'm like, dude, I said, stop lying, because when we talked to her like this all the time, and he showed me the video, and I went, okay, now it made sense.
So
But you
it
could
was
literally see
doing
this like
it,
figure
or
kind of coming in out of frame a little bit, and it was like just a grayish blackish form, and you couldn't see through it, so
okay.
it
Oh,
was
it was
solid.
opaque. Oh my God.
Yes,
So,
and that was the last time. But all in all, it ended up the guy that owned the house was incarcerated for a number of years. Um,
mm,
had moved into his dad's house, which was like three houses down. Started having problems there, him and his wife and stuff, and it was like marital problems and financial problems, and things go bump in the night, paranormal problems, and so they're like fresh start, new house, da da da. Well, it came with him, and
okay.
and it was still there. And the last I heard, they had moved back in with the dad, and it was still going on there.
Wow.
So it was almost like this multi-dimensional, it was following him directly. It wasn't attached to his daughter. It wasn't attached to his wife. It was attached to him.
Okay.
And after us trying to explain it to him, and hey, look, you're really going to need to seek some religious counseling, and we can only do so much because then we put ourselves in danger of
Mm,
something happening with
gotcha.
the client or whatever. So we gave him a buddy of mine. I was like, here, call this dude. He's up all the time. Call him, talk to him. He can get some stuff worked out. He's like, I'm not going. The client was like, I'm not going to a therapist. There's no way. I'm not crazy. And I'm like, I never said you're crazy. You know what we do? We're crazy. Okay, like I was trying to lighten the mood, a little bit,
Yeah, I was
and
taking it personally. Like,
yeah, and
sorry.
he was just like, y'all, you didn't help us, and he was like, you saw the video, you heard the audio, like
Wow.
it's
He probably
attached to
got
you.
defensive when he realized it was attached to him.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
dang.
yeah, very, very. But that was
Wow.
that was one of the few times that I'd been
A demon.
scratched or whatever, and it was pretty crazy. Like you don't expect
Okay.
you always expect it going in, but you don't expect it at the same time.
Yeah, yeah. And when you're like in it, like you're in the waters, basically, you can't be thinking about it too hard, I'm
Right?
sure.
Yes.
So you would definitely say like, yeah, demons are more rare, but that's something you come into
Yeah,
contact with.
I mean, I firmly believe they exist and they're out there. Um, it's just not as common
Okay.
as people think, in my opinion. It's
Gotcha.
you have a lot more poltergeists and spirits and stuff like that are
Gotcha.
floating around and and
What was the
causing
first one you
havoc
said?
and
Like photo guys or
do what now? Oh,
there I feel
poltergeist, yeah,
oh poltergeist. And that's like
poltergeist,
with the locate or the space, right?
yes,
Usually. Okay.
yeah, yeah. And we went to residences and businesses too where we found portals. It's a
Okay.
that's and especially after COVID, that has become a lot more uh, or
Common or
happening a
like
lot more, I guess.
oh my goodness. Okay. I'm like writing this down because I'm just
Oh,
like
you're
I want
fine.
to like make sure I'm fascinated by it. Why? Okay, okay. So portals are common with the space of, a
Yes.
poltergeist infestation.
Yeah.
And is a poltergeist usually like a singular entity, or it can take the form of multiple, or how does that work, I guess? If that,
The,
I don't know if that makes sense. I'm kind of a, novice to a lot of
yeah.
this. I have my general.
Gotcha. That's no worries. We went on an investigation with some good friends of ours that have a team, and there was five of us total,
Mm-hmm.
six maybe. And I'd invited a buddy of mine I work with. He was interested, and I said, "Dude, just go with us. Figure it out. See if this is your thing or not. See how we do it, and then you know, tell us what you think." And this was an 8-hour investigation, and towards the end of the night, there was a certain room, and you would walk by the room, and it was just a weird, funky feeling. And this was in an abandoned hospital, and it was just weird. It'd been a hospital, and then it was turned into a rehab facility, and then it was turned into
Oh
a
my
nursing home. And
God.
I mean, it's like you have the perfect combination of all this stuff in one spot.
Yeah.
And what we were doing for the I say newer people, and I do it a lot too, but you'll start out somewhere like in the area, and we'll blindfold you. So
Okay.
you got to hold somebody's shirt or arm or whatever, and they lead you to where we're going. Everybody else knows where we're going, but you don't.
Okay.
And um, a friend of mine was being led, and him and what his wife they've been doing it for years, so they're pretty experienced on it. And without us, we weren't going to take him to the room. We were going to go by and just go down the steps and take him to another spot. He
Mm.
stops and he's like, I've got to go. Is this a room, a door? What's going on here? And I'm like sitting there doing this to him, like make sure he can't see. And
Okay, like
yeah, like,
because yeah,
and
the screen froze again, but
oh, did
I think the audio is like the
okay,
most important.
okay,
Yeah. So yeah,
yeah,
you're like,
kind of, yeah. So we go in the
Waving your
room,
hand in his
and
face.
he starts
Hmm.
freaking out. Like, I know you're here. There's more than one of you. Show yourself. And so by this time, we're all in the room, and we got our recorders going and stuff. Well, they have a really nice high definition camera, not big, and I saw him change the batteries myself downstairs before we even walked up the flight of stairs. Like, I literally saw him physically put this battery in. It had been on charge. It was good to go. We get up there, and within 5 minutes, it was drained, and
Okay.
the voice recorder started draining. And the way the room's just a square room, but you could look out, and it was misty by the door. It was just a mist, like a gray,
Okay.
like, and
Fog. Like,
yes, fog. And so the one of the other ladies that came with us was like, "Hey, stick your arm out there and see if it's cold, hot, whatever." He's like, "I'm not doing it." And Craig was like, "I'll do it," you know.
skeptic.
so
He's like,
he
it's what can it do?
so he sticks his arm out there, and he was like, "It is cold and warm at the same time." And I'm like, "Okay, here we
Interesting.
go."
Okay.
And so on our voice recorder started working again. We didn't really get any video as much, but the stuff we got on the audio, there were seven spirits. They're all trying to communicate, and it was so jumbly that it was insane. But we were in there for a good hour, and that fog, mist, whatever, never left. We all literally walked out through it, and when we got around the corner to like the old nurses station was at, then we all kind of gathered right there, and we all turned back around, and it's like nothing there, just dark. So we walked back down there, flashlight, nothing, nothing was happening, and I was like, okay, yeah, yeah, this is kind of what we look for, which was a good training tool. The people who were with us, they were freaked out a little bit, but
Hmm.
because they went from I've never been on a ghost hunt before to you get the deluxe package. know,
Hmm.
like everything that you don't want had just happened,
Oh,
and
shoot.
yeah, and it's so random how that happens because you never know, if you're gonna
Okay.
pick something up or not. It just so happened that with all of our energies, at the right time, then we were getting some really crazy stuff.
Shoot. Wow. Okay. So they can kind of, yeah, materialize at least, or, humans and like people that aren't empaths might sense it in temperature fluctuations. And
Right.
then, yeah, you, for example, might actually be able to visibly see it.
Right.
Okay. And hear it too.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
right. Oh, man. Wow. Okay, that must be really trippy to go into like a hospital because it's like a liminal space. There's just so
Yes.
much energy that potential, I guess, because it has
Yes.
had and will have, and also the hospital. I was talking to somebody about this, and with a hospital, it's interesting because you have people coming into this world as well as leaving.
Yes.
So that's
Yeah.
really
It's
interesting.
yeah. It's crazy, and I don't tell a lot of people this story, but I want to share it because it's one of my most interesting. Um,
Please do, yeah.
my ex-wife, her mom was in the hospital, and this hospital has since been torn down. Um, but it's been around for years. I mean, 70, 80 years or whatever. But she was there having some tests done, and they were going to have to admit her for a couple of days. We're like, okay. So I'm like, hey, I'm going down, get some drinks or whatever. I'll be right back up. Well, just your normal hospital. So I get in the elevator, I go down, get drinks for everybody, hop on there. I'm like, yeah, she's on the 13th floor or whatever. So I click it, and I'm not paying attention. I'm not there for anything paranormal. I'm just there to visit, show
Hmm.
my support, right? So door opens. I get off the elevator. I look over. There's a lady sitting there, a nurse sitting there at the station. I'm like, hey, how you doing? She's like, hey. I make a right, and I get halfway down the hall, and I'm like, this floor's closed. There's no one here. All these doors are shut. Hang on a second. And I turn back around, and the hallway's just like dark, dim lit, kind of.
Mm.
They have like the emergency lights on or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, okay. So I start walking kind of fast back down to the elevators. And I got the elevators and I look over and this lady still sitting there, just like from before. I didn't see her when I was walking down the hallway. But when I got to the
Mm.
elevators, she was sitting behind the nurse's desk. And
Oh,
I'm like,
what?
you know what? I have nothing to lose. Let's find out what's going on.
Mm.
Just my brain. I was scared to death, but I was like, I got to do this. So I walk over and she was just, white, old school nurse's outfit, the little hat, her
Mm-hmm.
hair was kind of curled all around it, sort of 50ish, kind of.
Yeah, Nurse
And
Ratchet-esque, or
I was
like,
like, yeah,
yeah.
I think I got off the elevator on the wrong floor. I'm looking for, this floor. She's like, we don't have that floor. And I'm like, yeah, I went down to the thing, got some drinks, and I was like, I think I skipped it or I missed it. And she's like, this hospital only has 5 floors. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry to bother you. I apologize. And I was like banging on the elevator button.
Yeah, you're
I
like,
walk back over there and I'm like, so elevator opens. And it was 12th floor that she was on. So I went
okay.
through 13. So I hop back on. I get off the elevator and I'm like, I'm never telling anybody about this ever. Like, because this like freaked me out to no end. I just had a
Yeah.
conversation with someone that's not alive and they work at this hospital.
Oh
And
my God.
yeah, and I think it was a couple years after that, I actually told Craig, like I felt comfortable enough to tell him because I was like, we do this and stuff and we see all these different things and, we promote paranormal and this and that. And I said, but this really had me stunned because I actually carried on a conversation with someone that wasn't there. And it wasn't very long, but it was an actual dialogue. And he goes, oh, well, it's just residual. You know how that stuff
Hmm.
happens. And I'm like, okay, skeptic guy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what do you mean by that?
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, well, no, it always happens. Old buildings, there's always people, it could be somebody's playing a prank on you or whatever. And I'm like, no,
Hmm.
no, we wasn't playing a prank. This was like both hallways were dark. There was just enough light to kind of see, and it's like she was just sitting there doing her paperwork. Had no interest in me whatsoever, and it was almost kind of like a bother when I was trying to ask her the floors. Like I was
Yeah.
interrupting her, and it
Wow.
was insane. Now, more that I think about it more now, that I wasn't prepared for that even happen. Like
Right.
I wasn't expecting it. And by that time, we've been on, by the time I told Craig, we've been on 25 or 30 investigations. I thought I was pretty comfortable with what we did and everything. And then I just told him one day, and I was like, look, man, I got something to tell you. You might want to sit down, da da da. And I tell him, and, he goes on to his skeptic spiel. And I'm just like, you're right. It was a reflection. You're right. Yeah.
A reflection.
Yeah,
How?
we're going back and forth, and we never got a chance to go back to the hospital when they closed it.
Okay.
And that was something we were wanting to do, but somebody already bought it and tore it down, and
Dang.
so it was crazy. But hospitals, like you said, are notorious for that. Even when I worked at one for a while,
Wow.
just and had to work in the morgue too, of
Oh
all
my
places.
gosh.
So that was like intense all the time.
I was gonna say, like, with
'Cause
you being an empath, and also,
yeah,
was this prior to doing paranormal investigation then, or
it was
concurrently,
after.
or?
It was after Witch Story. It was years
Oh
after.
my
Yeah,
gosh.
yeah, and that was something that was kind of crazy. And I remember one time, for instance, I was there. and I was talking to the guy and the orderly, and I walked in there. It creeps me out anyway. You think I'd be used to stuff like that, but it still kind of creeps me out. And
Oh yeah.
I went in there and I was like, all right, man, I'm here. What's up? And he's just like, he's there just eating a sandwich, and I'm like, okay. And I'm hearing voices and I'm, this and that, and I'm like, you're enjoying your lunch apparently. He can't hear or see it, at all. He's oblivious to what's going on. And I was like,
Like
look, I
one
was
of your
gonna go in.
coworkers, or was this the entity or the
This
spirit?
was this was a coworker. He was just
Okay.
oblivious to it. But I
Okay.
was like, well, what happened? Why was there a smell? Da, 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 and he tells me, and I'm like, okay. And he goes, we got to get it cleaned up, and da, da, da. And I'm like, all right. And going in the morgue room itself was pretty insane because I was even scared to open the doors. Like that. Look, you know, this is
Hmm.
really close to that ending of the chapter.
Yeah.
And, he would give me a hard time about it sometimes. He's like, just quit feeling all the energies you feel, and 'cause he knew, and he said, just we got work to do. I'm like, okay.
Okay.
And after a while, I kind of became numb to it and did it, but it's for the couple. Well, I worked there about 30 years, but it was never a dull moment. Walking down the hall, you'd see people that weren't there. Um, hear voices in rooms that were empty. Uh, just crazy stuff. And I'm like, well, this is kind of good education or training for me.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it was really freaky because I would come home
Right.
and just be like, okay,
And probably drained too.
yeah,
Yeah, I wanted to ask, kind of taking note on that, you know, if there are certain people that, spirits or entities will be more likely to attach to. And, it sounds like, I mean, I don't know if with empath, being an empath, it's more just that you can sense them more, but they're not more likely to attach to you, or if there is any
mhm,
sort of
yeah. That
relationship
that
with that.
I think that happens a lot. I mean, being empathic,
Mm,
you feel everything around you.
okay.
You feel when the mood
Yes.
shifts, you feel when this happens or that happens, and when you
Mm-hmm.
throw people in the mix, then it changes because you kind of have to put that clear wall up, and you're like, okay,
Yes.
these
Yes.
people, even at like Walmart, the grocery store, whatever. Like as I'm walking in, I'm like, all right, you know, my fiance and I were like, okay, we're here to get this, da, da,
Mm.
da. Then I'll be pushing the buggy, and I'm just like, and you feel that off people. You
Mm-hmm.
feel
Yes.
kind of like little bits and pieces of what they're going through, and
Yes.
maybe not everything, but because a lot of people are good at hiding it, but it's just that thing, and I'm just like, okay, we get at the car, and I'm like, kind of have to like dust myself off,
Yes.
and then good to go
Shake it off.
after
And
after that.
so does that extend to like entities and spirits like working in the morgue? Did you find that you would be a potential like target for these beings or
I kind of figured that a little bit, but it wasn't
okay.
as bad as I thought it would be. I didn't work in the morgue area long,
Okay.
um, but it was a really good experience
Okay.
being in there. But even like I said, even being in and on the property, it was still very, very. I mean, even um, our offices were in the bottom of the hospital in the basement, and that's where all the nurses and stuff came in and out for our shifts and stuff, and we would see quite a few people, but if I would always try to stay in my room, my office, because when they were coming out of a shift, you could feel it. You could just feel what they had to deal with as in
Okay.
patients and stuff, what their mood was in,
Right, like your
and
coworkers.
coworkers and stuff. So I just
Yeah.
kind of, people coming into work, it was great. You feel the energy, the good vibes and stuff. But then when people left, it was
Hmm.
like this emotional drain,
Yeah.
and they were just ready to go. And I never really tried to talk to anybody there about, that stuff because, they think you're crazy,
Right, and
You
trying to keep
just
it professional, like not,
right,
yeah, nothing
yeah,
too outlandish to, what would be outlandish to like, average society and everything.
right,
And
yeah.
I was wondering then, by that extension, like, is there anything that you do to protect your energy when going into a job where you're answering a call regarding a spirit or entity
I normally I just kind of clear my mind.
mm,
Um, I it's more I kind of
for
use my drive
protection?
to it as my therapeutic place. Um,
Okay.
and I'll try to make myself go through as many emotions as I can before I
Mm,
get there. So,
okay.
my thing is like I'll listen to, you know, Notorious B.I.G. I'll listen to a couple songs and then I'll get
Mm-hmm.
real hyped up, and then I'm like, okay, I really, need some punk or some rock or
Yeah.
something.
Yes.
And, like the Dropkick Murphys are one of my favorites.
Heck
So
yeah.
I'll,
Mm-hmm.
I'll put a couple of songs on, depending how far we got to go. And then I'll switch to some classical and I
Mm-hmm.
try to
Yep.
get as much of that energy out. So when we do get there, it's like, okay, here we go. And, let's see what happens.
You're like a blank slate, then. You're more of
Yes.
like a vessel. It's so fascinating that you say that because with myself pursuing acting, it's very similar, I would say, doing preparation to act. You kind of almost need to clear out any of your own personal stuff. And a great way to do that is through music. And because, like, the thing is, if you have to go to an emotion that's very different than what your current state is, you kind of need to as they say, the only way out is through. You kind of need to like work through it before it dissipates. So it's
Right.
so
Yeah.
fascinating that you intuited that this is the process for you. So
Right.
that's amazing.
Yeah. It took me a long time to figure
Yeah.
that out. Like it took me
Dang.
years to figure my little pattern. I've always
Yeah.
loved music and I love
Yes,
every
same.
genre of music.
Mm-hmm.
But there's just certain types of music that like I'll listen to and I'll be like, okay, I'm ready to go. Some people just driving to work, for example, they listen to country or rock or rap or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, and they get to work and they're like, okay, but like me driving into work, I'm like news radio. I got to get my mind off other things besides what I'm doing, and then investigation the same way. It's like I found my stuff to get me motivated and to get me on, to what I need to be doing to help somebody.
Awesome. Yes. No, I love that so much. And it does, music can connect you to yourself and to others. So that's like such a, like, again, wise and like, yeah, very, like, not, it's intuitive, but it's not like obvious way to go about it at all. So
Right.
that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
I was going to ask if there are any like resources that you would suggest to people who would like to learn more about paranormal investigation that's, more accurate. I know you mentioned, was it Paranormal State?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. For my personal opinion, that's a very good series. To go back to watch it. And we picked up a lot from them because it was educational. They were going through everything step by step, and okay, doing the client uh, files and being very organized with what they do, and not just like, hey, we're going to the spot. Does everybody want to go? Type of deal. And
Mm-hmm.
but that's good, and I would recommend any kind of spiritual, religious book you can get your hands on, or you'll get on the web, and
Mm-hmm.
just read what you can because it will come in handy eventually. It may be 10 years from now, but you'll be like, oh yeah, I read this article. Da, 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 they did this, this, this. Let's try that, see what happens. But it's really good because the more knowledge you can get, the better off. But me and Craig always go back and forth, and I'm like, dude, I will never understand any of this. I will never get it.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, We're not supposed to. This is what we do. You know, this is our thing. This is what we go out to do. And I'm like, oh, it bothers me that we can't, you know, this and I want to learn this and do that. He's like, there's only 24 hours in a day. He's like, how much do you expect to learn? In one day. And I'm like, I want to read this and I want to watch this movie and this documentary is coming on and da da da. And before you know it, you're immersed in it. And it's very difficult to do that and have a normal life too.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's
No,
what
I
I would recommend to people. Just take it easy and, pick up a couple of things. And, if you're in a tarot card, get you a reasonable deck of tarot cards and study
nice.
it and practice it. Or, if you're into, uh, the audio and sound, because I have a lot of friends that do that. And if you're into the audio, then, do that. I mean, get into it, learn all you can about it, because you're never going to not stop learning.
Yes.
And that would be my thing. And don't get too hopped on yourself and too
Mm.
overconsumed, because it'll never end up. It'll it'll never end. A small tidbit with that. I follow an investigator on Instagram, and he got really famous really quick.
Mm.
And I was like, cool. I'm gonna watch. I'm gonna watch this guy. He's 1920. He goes to all these places and does documentaries and videos and stuff. And the last time I caught up with him that he went, and his wife goes with him, and he was in this coffin, and I'm watching this video, and he's doing the dialogue and showing the video, and he's like, I got in this coffin, and he said, and I was in there for probably 30, 45 minutes. My wife came in there, and she thought I had passed away, literally. She's like, I'm not breathing, and all this stuff, and I had this look on my face, and it took her forever to wake me up, and and this, and now she's mad at me, and and we're having to discuss the paranormal stuff, and da 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 da, da and and I'm like thinking, it happens, it happens. You go too far too fast, and then you get caught in a situation like that, spiritual, with paranormal activity. Then what do you do? And it literally freaked him out. Literally, just he's like, I don't know if I'm gonna do this anymore, and I'm like this and that, and I was watching it, and I was just watching how fast he progressed, because he wanted
Dang.
so much so fast. And when that happened, and that shook him, it shook his beliefs basically.
Mm.
And he was sort of questioning, you know, why he's doing it now. If that makes any sense
Yeah.
whatsoever. Like,
Right. Well, what's the purpose of all of it? That's
mm-hmm,
wow. So
yeah,
he kind of like was had a near death
yeah. I mean, pretty
experience.
much. I think he went to
Wow.
like a trance, because that happens if you're on paranormal investigation. It will happen. You'll be doing something and you'll just trance out. And if someone is with you that they don't know what's going on, they're going to freak out, which makes your
Mm-hmm.
situation worse. And they don't know what to do. They're freaking out. All their emotions are running crazy, and that's just giving more energy to the spirit or whatever it is that
Dang.
that has you in this trance. And it's this whole like energy cycle. And I was listening. I watched his last video, and not his last one, but the last one they went on to that, and he was just mortified. Like, I didn't know what was going on. I just woke up, and she's screaming, and you know all this other stuff, and I'm just like, it happens.
Dang.
As I'm watching this, and it's not funny at all, but I'm just like sitting there going, seen it, like,
Dang. So proceed with caution. Like, don't.
yes, and
Yeah.
I so wanted to reach out to him,
Mm.
but at the same time, I've tried to reach out to people before to give them advice, or just to
Mm.
say, hey, what about this or that, and they just shut me down, because
Oh.
it's not what they want to hear at that time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is a lot of a lot of going on in the paranormal uh, community,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately,
Jeez.
is that well, I'm not out trying to outcompete you. You
You're
know, I'm not
right.
trying
You're not
to,
trying to dampen his like flame or anything.
yeah, steal your glory or whatever.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I just want to find proof like everybody else. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I want to actually know before I leave this bubble. You know
Yes.
what's happening. Yeah,
Before you need a empath paranormal investigator to come like talk to you.
exactly. Yeah,
Yes. Yeah. Dang, that's amazing. And you actually answered what I was going to ask, which is what advice you would give to your younger self when you first started. And that's literally it. You literally had that
yeah.
experience with a
That's
kind of younger, you're like, you're
yes.
me, like,
That was, I mean,
10
when
years ago, 20
when
years
I was
ago.
watching his videos, I'm like, that's me when I first started out. I mean, I was rip raring to go, didn't know anything, just a few little books I've read, and then I got shocked and finally had to take a step back and be like, hey, okay, if I'm gonna do this, then I'm gonna need to do my work and understand what's really happening to the best of my ability, and then
Yes.
go do it. But it's kind of like to each his own, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's
Absolutely.
that's
It's a
a good
personal
thing.
thing, it sounds like.
Yeah,
Very
really, it
personal.
is. Yeah,
Wow. And yeah, I was wondering if you have like any books that I mean, as you said, read books of different religions and beliefs. I was wondering if there are any resources that like focus on paranormal investigation, like books wise, or if
yeah.
it's kind of like you just kind of have to know where what sites to look at and
It's that's you
pages.
kind of yeah, you kind of have to like dig
Mm,
for it, really. I mean,
okay.
you can Google like paranormal books, and it brings
Yeah,
up the Harlequin romance books.
I
So
see. Well, I was like, yeah, if you
yeah,
can
you're
like
the
if you have those sift out the ones that are
right.
like
So
yeah.
you really have to go in and be like, you know, type in exactly what you want, you know,
Okay.
and hopefully you can find it in there. And a lot of the book sites and stuff that I go on to, they have a pretty good selection
Okay.
of paranormal books, and they're reasonable. Um, but it's really all into what you're into. You know,
Gotcha.
there's so many people out there that have wrote books and experiences and stuff that do a little research on the author before you buy it, or before you go to
Mm,
the library and check it out, or read stuff online, or do a little bit of research on the author and make sure they're somewhat credible.
gotcha.
They've been in the field for a while. Um, they're not just trying to make a quick buck, on
Exactly.
the next paranormal book or TV
Mm-hmm.
show. Yeah.
Right, right. And again, the sensationalized, like kind of charlatan tree of it, I'm
Right.
sure you come across and everything. And
Yes.
then I guess like if you have any tips like for anybody that in case you ever like kind of like, this is what to do in the case of a fire, or if you have any tips for, a person like the lay person that you're, I don't know, alone at night in a creepy house and, you know, you're
Right.
pretty sure something's there, or you're
Right.
in a hotel room, because I feel like I've had weird just vibes from hotel rooms where I'm like, I gotta get out of here. I feel like something's gonna happen and
Yeah.
I need to
Like
go.
creepy, kind of just
Hmm. Or if
icky,
you
weird.
flat out have a
Yeah.
see something or hear something, if you
Yeah.
have like tips for like what to do in that
Yeah, I
situation.
mean, don't be if you go to if you go to a hotel and you're staying there or whatever, and you're in your
Mm-hmm.
room and you don't feel comfortable, just go to the
Mm-hmm.
front desk and tell them. You don't have to tell them why.
Yeah.
Just be
Yeah.
like, hey, look, I'm not enjoying my room, whatever. Make up any excuse
Uh,
you can, to get
okay.
a room change or whatever. Because
Mm.
like hospitals, hotels care, they hold a lot of spirits, so you never know, and that's the same thing like being home too, by yourself.
Yeah,
Like
I get real creeped out.
don't watch, like, unless you're really into it. Don't watch the crazy scary movies
Oh
or
yeah, I avoid
paranormal
it
stuff
when
or
it's
whatever at
yeah.
night, and which I'm bad about that. But
Okay.
you, that's a thing of that. Just just be aware of your surroundings. you
Mm,
know Kind of, it's your home, it's your safe
yes.
place, and you know welcome what you want to welcome, but whatever you don't want to welcome, just have them tell them to leave. They're not
Okay.
welcome
So
here.
just like stand your
Just
ground and
yes,
be firm. Like, hey,
yes, yeah,
this is my place.
yeah,
You need to go. You need to stop.
right, yeah. Just be
Okay.
very firm, be nice. Don't try to be like, leave my house now because, it's my house and you're not welcome. Because we don't really know, who was here before us
Uh-huh.
with the land and stuff like that.
Right. Because
So,
they're like, buddy, I was here way before. Yeah.
yeah, the year was 1890, or whatever.
Yes.
That's what they still think. So, it's just a whirlwind.
Okay. Okay. No, yeah. Thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah. 'Cause,
And
yeah,
and
you get vibes
and that too,
sometimes.
when you're out here listening or you're listening this or watches it, feel free, to contact me. I mean, I did
Yeah, we can
you,
put
yeah,
your handle and
yeah,
any
and
websites in the
you
description.
message me or whatever and be like, hey, I'm at the house by myself. There's some crazy stuff going on. I'll be more than happy to talk to you. I mean, it's not, I'm a talker, so it doesn't bother me. And
Awesome.
it's always good to try to reach out to people that you have maybe done this stuff before or you feel comfortable talking to that you can confide in because everybody I work with, they know what I do. They know I do paranormal stuff, but it's kind of an unspoken thing, you know.
Right. And
I've had employees come and talk to me and stuff, by myself, and it's like, hey, I had this happen at the house. All right, this is what you need to do. Make sure you do this, 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 and you should be good. Or whatever. Because don't ever think any questions dumb. Ask it 1,000 times if you need to. You know, just to make sure that you're safe and your well being.
right. And I'm sure there's such a case by case where you can't
Mm-hmm.
like give a blanket like
Yeah,
advice on how to handle it. So there's probably
right,
too many variables involved,
exactly.
whether it's a ghost or a demon or whether it's like attached to the property or a
Right.
person, and that's what you do. You dispel all
Yeah,
that. You
yeah,
come through with
yeah. Cause,
figuring that
'cause-
out. Well, Jason, this
yes,
was amazing. Such
thank you.
a pleasure and so insightful and just a
Yeah,
lot of fun.
it
And
was. Yeah, thank you.
let us know. Where can people find you? And we'll also include it in the description. But for
Okay.
those, yeah.
You can reach me at my email, which is jason575@gmail.com. You can find me on Instagram, which is jason.5.75. Facebook, I'm under Jason Fife, and you'll see the Paranormal Lost Souls on there. And you can reach us on Facebook at the Knoxville Paranormal Society.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not completely out yet. We've been in the shadows for so long that we
It's an
kind of just
underground thing.
yeah, we
Yes.
kind of just move and take cases and stuff that a lot of people don't want or don't want to
Mm-hmm.
do or don't can't do possibly and stuff like that. And that's the ones that we love because we're like, hey, been doing it for so long that hey, well, if it's a new experience, it's great, But
Mm-hmm.
like I say, you can contact us 24/7, and we'll help you out any way we can.
Awesome. Well, yes, thank you,
You're
and
welcome.
thank
Thank you
you
for
to
having me.
everybody for listening on this very like compelling episode. Take care, everyone. I hope you've enjoyed this week's episode of Too Cool for School, the podcast. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe. Thanks for sitting for a spell. Stay spooky, boils and ghouls, goblins and ghosts. Till next time.